Building a social life you desire is actually pretty easy. And this is coming from somebody who, when they were younger, when I was younger, I wasn't really as adept socially, if that makes sense. Um, I didn't really pick up on social cues that well. I knew a lot of people, but I never really felt connected to them. So like I wasn't getting invited to parties or it was very rare unless I was like hanging out with my main friend group. I wasn't getting invited to like the school outside of school functions and stuff like that. And so I feel like a big part of that was because I really had no idea how to connect with people and really make friends. So my teenage years, my middle school years were very boring. I didn't really start going out with friends and stuff like that until late in high school. But before that, my parents would always, kind of helicopter and, be like, oh, you got to be home by this time, or we don't know them. You can't go out with them. Just shit like that. Right. So I was inside most of my teenage years and my middle school years. And I feel like those years are very fundamental when it comes to developing socially. That's when you learn a lot of social cues. That's when you learn, like you start to learn your boundaries a little bit and stuff like that. But as I've became an adult, I've kind of had to, go back and reconnect with people that I've known for a while on a more deeper level. And I've also made new friends and I've made friends with people that I can call brothers and sisters for life. Um, and I'm going to teach you how to do that today, right? So, the number one thing is to build a social life, you have to be social. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to be social. I remember when I first got to school, the only people I really knew were the people I met at orientation and my roommate. And so I wasn't really going out that first semester. Like you could ask all my friends and stuff like that. Like you couldn't get me out of my dorm. I'd rather stay in my dorm and play video games and stuff. But that's because I had no desire to be social. If I had that desire to be social, I would have been outside more and stuff like that. But I was really cooped up. So number one thing when it comes to building your social life is you really have to want to be social. Like you have to want this for yourself. It's not something that you just like kind of stumble into. Like you can like I'm gonna explain in a second. I did kind of stumble into it, but now I can explain now because I've kind of repeated it a few times now to make more friends and build my social network and my network in general, so again, I'm gonna explain that to you. So yeah, first thing you got to want to be social, right? It's not just like if you're thinking like, okay, I want to build my social life, you're gonna have to be social. It's not gonna be something that you just stumble into, right? So number one thing that I 100% recommend to people is join hobbies that you're interested in, right? I remember back in high school when I was about 17 or so, I went to my first jujitsu class with my dad. And this was pretty much the first time I was really doing something outside of school like that. I had done basketball when I was younger and I did fencing at one point, bro. But um yeah, I went to the jiu-jitsu class with my dad and I literally had to force myself to go to that class. Like I didn't want to go to that class because the fear of being somewhere new and having to interact with new people was eating me up inside, right? So I literally forced myself. I'm like, no, like don't bitch out this time. Like don't bitch out. Like it's jujitsu, like it's a martial art and stuff like that. So I'm telling myself all this stuff and I hype myself up and go. And I end up having a great fucking time. Right? Like everybody made me feel welcomed. I literally met someone that, mentored me for the time I was training jujitsu pretty much. And like if I go him, bro, if I go to jujitsu, it's always fun to see him and stuff like that, right? And so I know I always have that connection. I know I could pull up to the gym anytime and he's there and I could ask him a life question or something like that, right? But like I said, you have to want to be social. If I didn't hype myself up, I never would have gone and met these people that I met at jujitsu. Now, once you start putting yourself out there and you start joining these hobbies, just going simply isn't enough. Like if you're a new guy, yeah, you're gonna have people come up to you and stuff like that and introduce themselves and stuff like that. But if you're not there really trying to make like genuine connections or even have fun doing the hobby, you're not gonna build this social network that you actually desire, right? So I remember when when I first started actually going out my room and stuff like that, I would just go to the rec at night to get some shots up and stuff like that. And I noticed these people playing volleyball one time, so I just joined them and played with them. You know, I play volleyball like here and there throughout high school. I'm just athletic, so like I can play sports and shit, you know, not to my own horn and stuff. But yeah, so I meet these people at volleyball. I meet this guy named Arnold. He's a good friend to this day. And he invites me to come to a club practice. And, you know, the first couple times I went, you know, I was awkward. I didn't really talk to nobody because I didn't want to disturb anybody and stuff like that. But then eventually I started getting the confidence, like, okay, I'm gonna start trying out some stuff. You know, I'm not just gonna come here and sit down like I have been doing. Like I'm gonna actually try to get better and stuff. Like my friend kept telling me like, oh, I see the potential in you, like, you know, like you can jump high, we just gotta work on your swing and stuff like that. So I started practicing, and just over time, you know, like I started, you know, talking to the guys more and actually like, you know, having conversation with some of my teammates and stuff like that. And like I said, like I've met some brothers for life through volleyball. Um and that again, that wouldn't have happened if, you know, I didn't have the confidence or the desire to want to go out and make connections, right? So when you're making connections with people, this is something I always struggled with, right? Just you have to have a desire to get to know the person. One of my favorite books that I've read is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I remember in the book at one point he talks about you really have to take a genuine interest in the other person. Like kind of disregard yourself in a way and like kind of just get this person to open up to you in a way. Like there's nothing wrong with making small talk, right? People, I feel like people nowadays, and I used to be that way too, where I would just avoid small talk, you know, like I would see it as pointless and stuff like that. But small talk is how you figure out whether or not you really want to connect with this person or not, in like kind of a shallow way, it seems like. But when you're doing small talk, you know, you find out like, okay, is this person gonna be someone I can relate to? Is this someone that's easy to talk to? Is this person interesting? Do they have things going on in their life, right? I was at the gym yesterday playing basketball, and there's this guy there that, you know, I hadn't seen before, and we were sitting down on the bench. I didn't start the conversation, but he started it with me, you know, introduce ourselves and stuff like that. We're just talking, and I found out that he got a master's in psychology and all this stuff. And this is just from playing basketball, like a random pickup game and stuff like that, right? And so I got his number and stuff like that. I told him I'll let him know when we hoop. And, you know, the more I get to know him and stuff like that, maybe if I have a random question about psychology, I can just go ask him and stuff like that. Not saying like me and him are going to be best friends, but I have that connection now to where I can utilize it if I need to. And again, it sounds shallow, but that's how you make connections, bro. Just talk to people, have a genuine interest in people. And I promise you, when you have a genuine interest in people, people love talking about themselves, right? I've talked about myself so many times in this video. People love talking about themselves. So if you get that person to just go on and on and on about themselves, and you're actually genuinely interested in what they have to say and stuff, that person's gonna love you. They're gonna love you. They're gonna be like, oh my god, that Nate guy is so amazing. You know, he had great advice. You know, he's such a great listener. He was so attentive and stuff like that. They're not even gonna realize they were just talking about themselves the whole time. You know what I'm saying? So if you can make these people feel special, make them feel special, try to understand, you know, where they're coming from, their background and stuff like that, it'll be infinitely times more easier to make connections with people. And you never know, those connections may spiral into lifelong friendships or, you know, brotherships or sisterships, you know? And I think those are having those in life, having those people to lean on in life where, you know, it gets real tough, because we all have those moments where it gets tough, having those people to lean on and being able to just break down to, or just be completely unfiltered with, are so important and healthy to have in your life when things start getting rough. And so if this is something that you really desire, go out and get it, bro. I gave you the steps on how to do it. Just go do it yourself, man. You got it. I believe in you. See you in the next video.